I don't know yet what it's going to do architecturally for me. I do know it changes my view on my time, generally and vocationally, and as far as hobbies go, I know that now my time feels more valuable than it did 4 months ago. Like, what I'm doing better matter, because I'm not with her and I'm not hanging out with our family, basically. So at this point, my perspective on things is a bit more intentional, and I think a little bit longer and harder about what I say yes to. That I don't actually have a specific type of project, but what I enjoy about whatever project I take on, if the opportunity is there, is the ability or the opportunity to be able to take whatever the factors are, context, owners, budget, lay it out on the table, sift through it in a way that boils it down to its uttermost true essence. Meaning, like, any human on the planet would ideally agree that this is the solution based on it's got some sort of thread or some sort of connectivity that pretty much any human could get on board with. It's that basic and that elemental. And then from there, building it up into more specific requirements of the client, of the context. So break it down and then build it back up. So whether that's a house, a museum, I guess, might be something I'd be into. Once I was convinced I should do it. I grew up drawing usually technical things like go-karts, and after I watched The Rocketeer, I drew up my own jetpack and what that might be. I drew my dream house, which I didn't want to talk about what it was, but at the time it seemed like, of course that's what I want to do. So there was all these kind of inclinations. I loved Legos, and I was always building and creating and crafting. So I knew there was something there. I took a drafting course in high school, kind of as, well, actually our guidance counselor told us it was either a technical course or foreign language. At the time, I didn't see much value in foreign language, so I was like, oh, the technical courses. And then, long story short, the summer after I graduated high school, I was given an opportunity to work for the one architect in our hometown. Worked for him for the summer, and he convinced me to change my trajectory, which was business and finance, and to pursue architecture, and that was kind of it. So he essentially made the decision for me. This is a good question. Music has been a part, probably, of what I've been doing, part of my life as long as architecture has. For me, they're both very spatial, and they're both tied to time. So whether I'm listening to a song or producing a song, like creating a song, I'm creating space, or that song, if it's being played live, is reacting within a space. So you're hearing another dimension to architecture with music. So being able to create space in both venues, I suppose, whether that be music or architecture, the idea of creating spaces and then other people being able to perceive those spaces, whether it be through my hand on paper or my ears through music. And I think you could get into the repetition and rhythms and that kind of stuff, but I think there's a physicality to both that just, I mean, being able to listen to a song with headphones and imagine space, I do kind of the same thing when thinking about architecture. It would have to be Grim Coolhouse, and there's just, well, for one, my brain is wired black and white. It's either on or off, it's black or white, it's either this or it's that, like for like, period. Coolhouse's entire direction started from the constructivists in Russia in the 20s. How they were trying to create an architecture that was for the people, by the people, and therefore can be understood by the people. So he went back and looked at machinery. Machinery there's no extra parts. Every part has a rhyme and reason, and every part in that machine has a physicality or parameters based on what it is. So there's nothing extra. Everything is identifiable per part. And so his architecture does that too. Every piece you see has what looks like a meaningless shape, but it's identifying roughly what that shape is. As lame as it sounds, I think Crown Hall is one of my favorite spaces. In that, I want to spend a lot of time in Crown Hall. But from one side, it being an object in a context, in an environmental context, it's a terrible building. But being an architecture student in a building made for architecture and studio, it's extremely well suited, like a well-tailored suit for that purpose. It being so open, free of restriction, makes very much sense for what architecture studio is about. Like we can take half of the parameters away and essentially explore thought and give you some boundaries to work within, but they're big and there's not many in there, so you can work pretty freely in there. And it does have another element which I enjoy about architecture, and is that it puts you as a human in the proper scale to its bigness. That's a cool term. "10 years seems like a long ways away, so I'm going to go with 3 years to 5 years, because that seems a bit more reachable. At some point, academics just go with, I don't know, me in general, so at some point in the near future I would like to teach in some capacity. And then the value of having that connection to some sort of practice. I think architecture is one part research, one part building. It's like both of those things need to be present to some or lesser degree in order to be staying current and progressing with the reality that we're moving sequentially in time, but then also to be able to move beyond that tangentially to be in contact with the ideas that are out there that aren't being built. So whatever way that works itself out, that may or may not be 3 to 5 years, but there is some idea of that out there.